How's it going, guys? I'm Jeremy, and I'll tell you a little bit about a trip we just did up to northern Sichuan province. It's a pretty nice area. It's a little bit of a hidden gem because not too many people go to this area. Most people will go out like towards west, like you can see on this map here I'll put up, and it's got, you know, the western areas are the huge like Tibetan mountains that are like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 meters high. And so a lot of people will go 3 or 4 hours west, or they'll go down south towards like Sichuan. Some of the Itsu areas are down towards Yunnan for the most part. And then there's also going northwest, which is also like Tibetan areas. But a lot of those areas are a little too far, so I figured we only had a 4-day trip for this Qing Ming festival, which is like the tomb sweeping festival in China. So I figured, we'll just go a few hours north, and I know a nice road that I've taken my motorcycle a couple times that would be good. And so everything, you know, worked out pretty well. So this area is a little different than around Chengdu, because around Chengdu it's like more, I guess you could say like tropical, and in the forest you have like bamboo forests and things like that, and farmer fields. Up north you have farmer fields and stuff too, but you have like more pine trees and just a little bit of a different eco-climate and views, so it's kind of nice. And actually, if you keep going up north from there, you go into Gansu, which is also amazing, and it actually keeps getting better as you go north. But since we only had 4 days, I wasn't going to spend like, 12 hours driving all the way up there. But the area Gannan, or west of there in the southern Tibetan areas of Gansu, is also awesome. So if you do have a few more days, like a week or two, I would definitely check out southern Gansu because there's hardly any people. It's really underrated and an awesome destination. So I'd actually gone up here, I guess 2 or 3 times on my motorcycle, actually. And it's funny, just to give a quick story of one of my trips up there. About 5 years ago, I went up there, and at that time, they were still kind of more lenient if you had like a motorcycle license or not. And at that time, I had my car license, but not the motorcycle endorsement. And I was going down the river, which is actually where I dropped these guys off a few days ago. And a cop stopped me, and he saw I didn't have the endorsement. So he actually, the other cop drove it back to the next town, and he brought me to that town. And, he was like giving me the ticket or whatever. I'm not even sure if I got points or had to pay a fine. Maybe it was a warning, but I had to stay in that town overnight. Like I got a hotel while they were, doing whatever. And I went out and drank with the guy and hung out with his friends and got a barbecue. So it was kind of weird. I'm kind of like this guy's hostage for the night or whatever. And, so it's kind of good in a way. Of course, I didn't lose the bike or anything big. And when I even talked to his friends, I was kind of like, like we're hanging out and stuff. Is he like going to let me go tomorrow? And the next day, we went to the bus station, and we put the motorcycle on the bus, like on the bottom floor, sideways, horizontally. And I went back down towards Mianyang, like down towards Chengdu. And I think I actually took off after that anyway. But yeah, that was kind of funny. So I ended up getting my motorcycle like the next summer or something like that. I would have even already had it, but it was a big hassle to get at the time. Another story. So anyway, we headed up there. It was normally it'd be about 4 hours to where I would have dropped them off, but because it was that holiday, there was an extra hour or so of traffic. And so I didn't drop them off probably till like maybe 3 o'clock or so. And there's a nice little side road that goes along a river to another bigger river that goes up towards Guangyuan, which is the biggest city in that area. And so there wasn't too much traffic there, and it was pretty nice. And it was funny because the first hotel we got was really posh. It was like a 4-star hotel at least, really new. And of course, the new hotels, they don't want dogs. And we had, 4 dogs with us, and one of them was huge. I didn't even realize that my buddy was bringing such a big dog. And so they kind of snuck in the dogs to the room. I mean, the guard and some people obviously knew we had dogs, but luckily on the trip it was no issue overall. And I would have even gotten a more basic hotel, but as you might have known from some of my videos, it's super hard to get a hotel in China if you're a foreigner in general. And in the last week and a half, Chengdu got like a dozen cases of COVID. I think now it's about 22 or something like that. And Shanghai's already locked down because there's like 100,000 cases or something. So everyone in China is more freaked out than like 2 years ago when Wuhan basically blew up. So I tried to get some mediocre hotels, but none of them would take me, so I had to get like usually the nicer ones. The last time I did this trip, just another story of being up there, I did it 2 years ago. I took up a group, and this, of course, was around the same time, which was only about 3 months into COVID or 4 months, and no hotels would take us. Not a nice one, not a basic one. So we had to camp every night. And of course, it was hot at that time. I don't think it was a Qing Ming festival. I think it was the May Day holiday. So it was actually a month from now. And it was quite hot then. So those guys are cycling in the day and sweating and all hot. And then they had to sleep in the tent every night. And I think the last night we were at a restaurant, we were able to shower in the restaurant or whatever. So that was definitely a bad sign, because that was my first trip after I came back from Cambodia. And I had come out of quarantine and I did that trip, and I was like, wow, you know what? It's going to be so hard to get hotels from now on. And 2 years later, it's just almost as bad, basically. And if you saw my last short video I did, it was, we almost got quarantined the third night. So anyway, the second day went well. You have kind of a climb coming up, and to the left, there's some pretty cool mountains there, and a huge reservoir, which is really pretty. And the traffic on that road's really heavy. So if you do go on that road, whether biking or on a motorcycle, whatever, it is really busy in that first section. But once you get to that first city, which we stayed the second night, I guess it's Puan Town or Chungbei. I'm not sure, looking on the map. Anyway, small city, and actually I saw a hotel just outside of town, and even earlier that day, and they wouldn't take us. So I had to arrange this hotel right in the center of town, which was super noisy. Just right at a corner where the traffic gets built up, and there's just beeping all the time. So when you do get hotels in China, make sure you get the back, not facing the road. Now that's not always perfect, because you could have people in the parking lot beeping and stuff, but definitely a little bit better of an option. And my friends also had some fun with locals. Like, we were sitting outside the second night and having a barbecue, and so all these people came up and took photos of us. And then a couple people came and drank, and I knew when the one lady downed a glass of it's Meijio, which is about, 20% alcohol. Not real high, but I knew it was going to be a long night, so I headed back. And Nicole and David partied that night. And then the next night, when we were stuck at our hotel, those guys partied a bit. They were singing karaoke and stuff in their room till 3, 4 a.m. or something like that. So that was some good times. It was fun. So anyway, after that point, you've got about 3 decent climbs. Each about 5Ks. You get up onto a ridge, and then you go down and back up again. But really nice scenery, and the road's quiet after that town. So at least that's quite nice. And the third night, I wanted to stay right on that main road, which is, I think, the G108. And I couldn't get a hotel there, so we went down off the mountain about 10 Ks to a small town. It wasn't on Trip.com or C-Trip. If you go on QQ maps, you could sometimes see little guest houses and just numbers, so I couldn't see any pictures or anything like that. And the lady said they'd take us, and so we headed down there, and they accepted us and everything, but the locals were kind of freaking out. The local health guy came, and actually the first night on the trip, first day and a half or so, it wasn't too bad. People got photos with us. They were nice. They got the basic information, our health code, but it seemed as our trip went, maybe because of the news in Chengdu or everything, they were getting much more paranoid on average. And so eventually the police came, and they were like, you can't leave the hotel, we have to test you and stuff. And I had just gotten my COVID test just 2 days before we had left Chengdu. And they were like, you can't leave the hotel. And they did the nose test. I've never actually got it. They did my mouth and my nose. And so, we were pretty upset, because it was just there's 12 cases in Chengdu, and you're freaking out. We have a green code. We're not from any of the parts of the city that have cases. Otherwise, that would show up, because the phone tracks you everywhere anyway. So it just shows that they have the technology, but they don't want to accept that, just because they're paranoid or whatever. And so it was no big deal. We ordered kind of a hot pot with chicken, and they ended up just delivering that to the hotel. We ate outside. We were pretty tired anyway, and the next day we headed off, and we did the last 20, 30 Ks to Zitong, and then we headed back to Chengdu. So it was a good trip. It was fun. It was, you know, with the dogs, it was interesting. It made it a little more fun and a little bit more difficult in some ways. 'Cause for me, I'm driving and the dogs, you know, jumping up to the front seat and stuff like that. But it was pretty cool. It was kind of funny too. Like the dog had found like a mannequin head, so we were like tossing the mannequin head like in the parking lot, some different areas, and it was kind of funny because you know the people never in these areas see foreigners anyway, and then they see the dogs, which is also kind of strange because people kind of have strange feelings about dogs in general, and then, you know, we're throwing this mannequin head and stuff like that. A couple of the restaurants wouldn't take us that second last day. I'd gone into one of the small towns for lunch, and they were kind of paranoid. And I went to the other one. At first, they were like, yeah, we have this and that. And then as I was waiting for people, they thought about it more. And, you know, they had seen the dogs and stuff. And then they were like, Maitre Fan or whatever, Mao Mi Fan, whatever. It's like, no food. We don't have food now. It's like they were about to serve, and they were like, oh, no, we don't. So they got all nervous, and we went around the corner where they had noodles and dumplings and stuff. And the lady was kind of yelling. She's like, you know, you shouldn't have dogs. The dogs could transmit the disease or something like that. And they were spraying the whole room and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny. But anyway, you know, it was a great trip. One of my last longer bike trips. I might do one this summer if I have time, but I'll probably take off as soon as I wrap things up here. But I definitely recommend headed up that way, that G108, that town Jianga. Right near there's a place called Jianmen, and that's got like kind of one of the old, kind of like a fortress, and that was kind of a big barrier for like if people invaded from the north into Sichuan, that would be like a protection against like invaders and stuff. And there's a couple other interesting sites around there. And like I said, if you go northwest of there to like Langmusa and Ganen up north and tons of places, if you got another day, I'd totally recommend it. But that also takes another, you know, 7-8 hours. Jagana is super, super nice. But yeah, a little ways, a little further out. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.